Anyways, so here we are. We are joined today. Mandy had a last minute thing, so she canceled on me. So I started texting people I wanted to talk to. So here we are with Alden. He is the owner of SlopePro Roofing. He is a third generation master roofer. You know how I know? Because I've heard him say that a whole lot.
No doubt.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Fact check it, Mandy.
Fact check it.
So, first of all, Alden Echols. Great introduction.
Yeah, he called you Mandy.
Oh, yeah. What's her name?
Courtney.
Oh, my God.
Glad we got that on there. Don't edit that out.
No, we don't edit stuff like that out.
Fantastic. Well, so for fair, how many texts down was I before you got a yes?
Oh, you were like, I sent 3 out at the same time.
Oh, and I was all over it.
You were. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right, so you're sending this to Joe Rogan. So
yeah, this is going to lead to bigger and better things.
I'm excited. It's my big break.
You know, look, there's a few podcasts that's popped up in Richmond lately for real estate, and you know, just so you know, we're like the longest running and first. Okay, I don't know if either one of those. Yes, and the best. And I don't know if any of those are true, but I think so.
Yeah, definitely.
Just making it up.
I'm just making
fact check it, Courtney.
That's right. Fact checking.
I don't think I am.
Right.
I don't think I will.
So I'm Alden Echols. Third generation master roofer and framer. I own SlopePro Roofing. I have a partner that runs that with me, John Ross. I think you met John.
Yep.
And we have been in Richmond now, will be 5 years, November 1st when we started. So a little bit about my background. So yeah, I grew up roofing. My grandfather owned a roofing company, and we kind of all lived more or less like a gypsy commune, I would say.
Okay.
We had
a commune.
We had actual houses, but
Yeah.
he was also a cattle farmer passively, so he parceled off that cattle farm. So it was my house and my aunt's house, my uncle's house, and then me, mom, and granddad back in the field. So by the time I was 10 years old, instead of my parents paying for daycare in the summer, I got to go roofing.
That's exciting.
Oh, it was so much fun.
I tell my daughter all the time when she's bored, like, "Hey, there's a street out there with cars in it. Go play it.
Go do that."
There's so many. There's so many things you can do.
Yeah.
Like,
Why are you bogging me
yeah.
down? So, honestly, I was super excited when I first went, for that first summer, because my cousin Robbie, who was kind of like my big brother, he's 5 years older than me, and I used to follow him around everywhere. But in the summer, he'd go roofing, and I'd just be at the house by myself with my sister, who I did not get along with back then.
Sure.
So that first year, I was super excited. And so I get up early, we go out, we roof that first day. And I thought it was just going to be like a summer camp, having fun, hanging out with my granddad and my cousin. And so we get out there, they're tearing the roof off, and I'm trying to, I'm just trying to talk and, shoot the shit. And then my grandfather's like, "What are you doing up here? Go down there and clean that ground up." I'm like, "Okay." So I go down there and I clean the ground up as fast as I can, and I come back up on the roof, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm sitting down trying to talk to him again. They're nailing shingles. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, the ground's clean. I'm done, dude.
That's right.
Clocked out."
Yeah.
And he's all like, "No." He's like, "This, we're working. This is work. Go down there and start toting those shingles." So I'm 10 years old again, a frail 10-year-old too. I'm gonna tell you that now. My head was this size, but my body very tiny. And so I go down there, and of course I can't pick up a bundle of shingles,
Sure.
And he's like, "Oh, of course you can't. You're 10, so just break open the bundle. You carry 2 or 3 shingles as much as you can. You just have to take more trips."
That's right.
So by the time I got home that day, I was sunburnt, like critically sunburnt, because of course nobody puts sunscreen on me. Why would they?
No, why would they do that?
And my shoulder and neck are bleeding from carrying the shingles. My hands are all blistered.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm pretty much good on this.
Good. We don't need to do this
I'm
anymore.
not. I've experienced that. I'm not really about that life. So the next morning, my grandfather's at the foot of my bed at 5 a.m. Let's go. And I'm all like, "Actually, I'm probably just hang out. Y'all go have a good old time. I'll see you when you get." He's like, "Oh no, it's on now. Now you started. You're gonna see it through." So he made me get up, and that whole summer was basically torture.
Yeah.
And now looking back, I'm super glad
Sure.
for that experience. Obviously, I make a great living doing it. But so when I was in 2008, you remember 2008?
I do.
Tough year for contracting.
Yep.
Don't.
She was like 4.
Yeah,
Maybe 5.
7.
See.
earliest memories.
Yeah.
We'll circle back to
playing
that.
on a DS.
Yeah.
School bus. That's
Yeah.
what I was doing.
I'd already been 2 deployments deep at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was So I broke away from my family school. My uncle was running it at the time. And so I broke away, and I'd been going to school at ODU down in Norfolk. And then I dropped out of school, was going to start my roofing company. Mm-hmm. And so I started knocking on doors and selling roofs. And then I've pretty much been in business for myself ever since. So I built that company. I sold that to one of the largest companies in America in 2012. Mm-hmm. And then I was a consultant for 6 years, almost 7 years.
Okay.
And so, which was really, really cool. I didn't even know that part of the industry existed, but you can go in, and so if you're doing government work or industrial stuff, all of those scopes of work that you're bidding off of is typically an engineering firm or an architect that writes that. More specifically, a roofing, discipline in that field. So I started doing that as a freelance. So I'd write scope of work, I'd do inspections, I'd do quality control oversight. And so when I moved back to Richmond, when I found John and we decided we were going to partner up and start this consulting firm, we moved to Richmond. We called it Slope Scope, and that's what we were doing. So we kind of had a hybrid model where we would offer those services residentially.
Okay.
And it was we paid, it was $350 for the inspection. We come out pretty much exactly like what you do, just roof focused.
Sure.
And then this is what needs to be done. We write that scope of work. We give you kind of a cost to cure. Mm-hmm. And then we could help you bid that process out. So I created really good relationships with who are now my competitors, which is great. Yeah. I went to their offices and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Would you be interested in getting these bids? Uh-huh. And so they did. And and so I'm sorry, I moved my hands too much, too expressive.
Tapping the table and I just hear it.
Oh, sorry. Well, for those of you whose experience has been ruined, I apologize. But
trying to be subtle about it, but I guess.
You're good. You're good.
I forgot to tell you, she has looks.
Yeah, it's all right. Blocking her out.
That's right.
So anyway, so we were doing that, and then if we bid it out for you, then you would pay 10% on top of whatever you'd pay, but we'd be there for your quality control and all like that. So it was going really well, but still the bulk of our business then was commercial industrial, and then COVID. We all remember COVID, but specifically in commercial and industrial roofing, that screeched to an absolute halt. Yeah. For multiple reasons. One, you couldn't put together a full order, so when you do a big commercial job, you're using all the same manufacturer stuff, so you're putting together a cohesive order so you can get the manufacturer's warranty. Everybody wants to you spend a bunch of money, you want the manufacturer's warranty. Well, you couldn't put together a full order. You might be able to get insulation from one company, membrane from another company, but you couldn't put one comprehensively together to get the warranty. So already one, you're not going to spend six figures on a roof project where you get no warranty. Right. So people are very, very, adverse to that. Yeah. And then two, nobody was in the office. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, the commercial building's leaking, but nobody's there. Everybody's at the house. So we don't care. Right. So we were going bankrupt. And so I told John, I said, well, man, we're just going to have to pivot into being a roofing company because I know how to do that. Yeah. And so November 1 is when we founded SlopePro of 2020. And so, like I said, this will be our 5th year. But, I mean, we do everything residentially, commercially, industrially, replacement, repairs. And so, I mean, that's basically what we do. So
when we talk, I think we have a very similar mindset in how we approach the business and whatnot. It's no secret that roofing, like many trades, if not all trades, there's a perception problem, right?
Yes.
People don't trust it. Right?
Yeah,
and that's
for sure.
Inspectors, that's realtors, that's roofers, that's electricians, HVAC, right? Because there's just people who give everybody else a bad name, whether it's through price gouging to quality of work to whatever the case may be. Both together. Sometimes it's both. Yeah. So, when we're talking about all of that stuff and when, we do a lot of networking and all that stuff, there's really never really heard anything negative about SlopePro, right? Yeah. So what's your approach to that to overcome those issues in an industry where, like I said, it's really, really easy just to go ahead and be labeled untrustworthy.
For sure. Words. Well, I think, so in the consulting world, I was also doing a lot of consulting for small, medium, and large roofing companies on everything from client acquisition to reputation management production stuff. And I did that in multiple cities all over the United States.
Yeah.
What is unique about Richmond specifically, and a lot of people that have operated as a business in this area know that, is that it really is a big city that feels like a small town.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, for one thing, I mean, if you do somebody wrong, that is going to spread super fast here, which I think is great.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's kind of a big thing. So, I mean, it really just comes down to, one, you know, doing what you say you're gonna do,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you mess up, just owning that mistake.
Sure.
You know, at 100 miles an hour.
Sure.
And I mean, because it doesn't matter what business you're in. Obviously, you're going to make mistakes, especially if you're in a rapid growth phase, which we've been in now. It feels like the entire time.
Yeah.
And you're bringing in new people, and you're trying to build out these systems and processes. And I mean, at most days, it feels like you're flying an airplane while you're still building it. And so mistakes are made. But you know that once a customer understands, or client, or you know another business that you're working with or whatever, once they understand that. When those mistakes happen, that you're going to bend over backwards to you. First, you own the mistake. Hey, that was my fault.
Yep.
And then you do whatever it takes to own that, whether it's, losing money, it doesn't matter. Whatever it takes for you to make that right. As long as you do that, those kinds of experiences travel just as fast as the bad experiences.
Sure.
Because especially when you're working with somebody who's had a bad experience somewhere else, and then this mistake happens, and then they have the experience of, wow, they really owned this mistake. They really stood by what they promised. People are as excited as they would have been mad.
Yeah.
And so that really spreads. I mean, obviously Google reviews are a big one when people are just first starting to search it. So I think what's different about our businesses, yours being the home inspection business, obviously mine roofing, is you are dealing with a lot of repeat customers in the sense that you work with a lot of realtors over and over again. I mean, obviously the direct client, who is whoever's paying for that, is a new client, and you might see them once or twice at the most. But for roofing, it really is kind of a one and done, which also makes it pretty tricky for us, because most people are only going to do a roof project one time in their entire life.
Right.
And so they don't really have anything to compare to. So I mean, really, we can be 10 times better than our competitors, and they can't really compare that, right? They compare the sales portion and everything that leads up to the roof, but the roof they're just going to do the one time.
Yeah.
And I mean, I tell people all the time, it's like, how good Chick-fil-A is because you've eaten at McDonald's.
Yeah.
That's not a thing for roofing. So you, as a roofing company or any service company where you're doing one major purchase the one time, you really are comparing yourself against everything else that they buy, whether that's through Amazon or Walmart or whatever, where they buy stuff and they have these customer service experiences. So you really have to strive to make that experience compete with companies at that level. And that's, in roofing, is a very hard thing to do. There's not a whole lot of things that are automated, still an enormous amount of human factor. And so, I mean, really it just, you hit the mark more than you miss it, but when you miss it, you have to remind that customer, like, listen, it's not machines out here doing this. They're people.
For sure.
And so,
for sure,
kind of setting that expectation is a big one too, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we had a phone call last week, working through an issue with a past client, and, and it was, owned it. Like, yep. There it is. There it is. And client's super chill, for the most part, just want to bring it to our attention. And I said, everybody has a bad day. I said, that's all I can chalk it up to.
Yeah.
We're going to do, this many inspections a year. We did almost 1,400 last year. We're going to do 1,700 this year. I said, I want them all to be perfect, but reality is, it's not going to be.
That's right.
There's going to be days.
Breakage, we call it.
Yeah. So I think that's a key point, is the customer service side of things is what separates people. Because I use the same analogy. I said, I did a marketing class yesterday for a brokerage, and I told him, I said, reviews are great. We have been very intentional of getting reviews. This is how, in less than 6 years now, by the time less than 5 years. Really took us 4 years to become the third most reviewed home inspection company in Richmond, right? Third company to get over 1,000. And while that's important, I also don't put much stock into those reviews in general because like nobody knows what we do,
Right.
So they don't know what a bad home inspection, because you can go to bad home inspection companies and see 5-star reviews
For sure.
because they don't know what that's supposed to look like. You go from one Chick-fil-A to another and you get bad service, you know what that looks like because you've been to other Chick-fil-A's.
Definitely.
Right? So it's important for all the marketing and Google and SEO and all that stuff, but people also don't know what they're reviewing. At the same time. For sure. So
nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I said, it's once in a lifetime. I'm 42, right? And the house that we're living in will probably be the first time we've got a roof.
Right.
And
well, we're very excited about that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, for discounts and all.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and it's even more so, part of the conversation yesterday in that marketing class was understanding your demographics, because the older generation, they were the stationary generation.
Yep.
Right.
Sure.
They're the ones that they lived in the same house for 50 years. They're the ones that, they've gone through three roofs at that point.
For sure.
But the younger generations, they're mobile.
Every 5 years.
Every 5 to 7 years,
yeah.
They're moving. And so, they may always just miss that window,
Yeah.
And I tell that on a lot of home inspections, like, hey, if this is your forever home, the roof's going to be a problem, right? If this is a 5-year home, you may not have to worry about it.
That's right.
Maybe somebody else's
problem.
Yeah. So it's very unique in that, especially because of longevity, and then you get into metal roofs and slate and stuff like that, and
for sure,
it's even more longevity in those. So you said something the other day that really resonated when we were talking at the networking event, saying that you can't make enough money, right?
Right.
That's your mindset. So a lot of businesses, they get to a point where it's cruise control, and I get it, because when you're constantly in a growth phase, it's just chaos and it's exhausting.
It is very stressful for sure.
Yeah. But I don't know your reasonings, but I resonate with that because I feel the same way. And this isn't like, hey, I'm trying to be Bezos.
No,
I wouldn't say no to that.
That'd be cool.
It would be cool.
Yeah.
My super yacht.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be super cool.
But it's, growing up without much or nothing. As I tell people, I didn't grow up poor. My family did. They just drug me along with them.
No doubt.
And then of course, working in a volatile environment, market, industry, whatever you want to call it, it just never feels like it's enough, So what drives you to get to that point to where it's just never enough?
So I think, it's hard to say, because it could be a therapy session involved in there somewhere. But,
sure.
I think the biggest thing for me is, you're right. Like what is comfort?
Yeah.
For some people it's completely different. Some people are very happy with, living paycheck to paycheck. They could be happy like that. And I think, so for me, I did get to see what having money looks like. My grandfather was very successful. Mm-hmm. And I obviously spent a ton of time with him, but he also wasn't handing out no money, buddy.
That's
right.
You
know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't buy you a piece of candy.
That's right.
He just how he was. And he'd have $20,000 in cash in his pocket. And he's all like, no, man.
Yeah.
So you could work for it. He'd pay you well if you were out there roofing, but he didn't hand out money. And so, but I got to see what not ever needing money looked like, which was super cool. And my parents, they were lower middle class. We never went hungry, but the cable would get turned off every once in a while for no payment.
For sure.
But I have no complaints about my childhood. I think it was, my parents did a great job, and they make really good money now, of course, now that I'm gone. Maybe it was my fault.
That's how that goes.
But
kids are expensive pets.
No doubt. No doubt. So my brother, who's 7 years younger than me, he's actually my head of production. We're really, really close. He came later, mm-hmm. and so me and my sister are a year apart. Mm-hmm. And so by the time we got out of high school, Aaron was living the dream, man.
That's right.
We used to call him, so he's got red hair, so we used to call him Vacation Ginger, because dude, on the summers he'd be gone. Also, I'm like, where were these vacations? I was roofing, man. What's this kid doing?
Yeah.
So, but
that's how it was with my mom and her, my aunts.
Yeah.
There was like a big age gap between my mom and her older sister, and then the two younger ones. So the two younger ones were getting like horses for Christmas.
Yeah, completely different lifestyle.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Good for them,
Right.
So, but for me, I was the I was the kid that like the day that I could leave my parents' house, I left my parents' house and never came back. And so I know what it's like to be so broke you can't afford dinner. I mean, I've been in that position. Now, I put myself willingly in that position. And I was too proud to ask for my parents to help me or whatever. I was just, I'm going to figure it out. And so I have never really in my entire life felt that I have stood on a solid financial ground. And because, I'm 39, I'll be 40 next year. And so I've got 2 kids. I got a wife. I mean, we live a very middle-class lifestyle. But it never, it just feels like one bad market condition or one bad year at work, or just like, I've been in the mode for so long of survival that I don't know how long it'll take me, if ever, to get out of that. And so it's, okay, so what's the cure to that? Well, it's obviously create as much abundance as possible and just create that pad around you. And so now to that end, because I am used to not having, a retirement and all of the things that a lot of my peers now have at almost 40 years old, that I don't really care about that. I don't need that. So the money that we make, we reinvest into growth, because at the end of the day, growth phase is stressful. To me, it is something that I crave. So without that, that stagnation, even though, okay, if we stopped spending money in the growth and the marketing and hiring and all the procedures that we're putting in place, that all of it costs money. If I stopped doing all that and we just basically pulled all the money out that we're making now, I would live a very comfortable lifestyle. But I would get so bored with that. Because I think it's Adrian Peterson. You ever listen to that guy? So he says that, and I think this is very true, once you have checked the money box to the sense that you're not going hungry, the bill collectors aren't at your door, you've kind of checked the money box to where like a ton more money's not going to really improve your happiness exponentially, right? So it's like, okay, your money might go up like this, but your happiness is not going to go up with that. It's just going to kind of taper off. Money becomes kind of a non-issue. And so for me, it's not really about the money. It's literally about that growth, about bringing more people into what the culture that we're creating, that we believe in, and then watching those people succeed off of something that you built. To me, that is much more gratifying than the super yacht. And so, and my business partner John is even more that way. Like, if we made $10 million this year, John you would never, he's that guy. You'd never know that, And so I would flex a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I'm probably wearing like a Rolex, not an Apple Watch.
No one's shocked by that statement.
but there would come a point where it's all like, oh, that stuff is now empty, So I really like the growth. I think that what we're creating goes far above and beyond just being a roofing company. We're really trying to strive to be a brand that people believe in and trust and want to be a part of, not just in Richmond, but in any market that we move into. We also operate down in Virginia Beach. We have a market down there. And so, and same thing, watching those guys start to build and thrive. The guy that runs that market, or that owns that market, actually, we sold that as a franchise. His name is Wesley Anderson. He's one of my oldest friends. I mean, we went to middle school together. Known him forever. He's a great guy. And so to watch him, buy into it and just really commit to it in a way that most people will never commit to a profession or a job or a career. To me, that is a higher marker of success. And so, to that end, so as much as we can build that out and expand that out, that's my true dream. That's my true vision. And what that takes, it takes reinvestment. It takes, pushing that rock up that hill every single day. And then, and who knows when that's going to be enough, but one day I'm going to look around and there's going to be this empire, hopefully, or,
for sure.
Or maybe I die tomorrow, Sid, that's got nothing to do with me. That's not up to me. But that's the way I look at it. And so the things that we do, the systems and processes that we put into place are built for that growth. They are built for that longevity and to, because, we go back to Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is a great example of that. They have grown so fast, but so stably that it doesn't matter what Chick-fil-A you go to. It's always good.
For sure.
And that's what I want for my business and the people that that have believed in me. Cause I mean, I've got people around me that have been with me since the beginning when it was literally nothing but truly a dream inside of my head. And so for me to be able to deliver on that for them is a big deal.
So building something that creates a good culture and whatnot. And it's not just, because it's not just padding your bank account, right? No. It's trying to help other people. It's trying to do things. You know, one of the things we didn't talk about in the beginning was, you know, the giving back, right? Like last year, you were a funding father.
Yep.
You know, we both did that together for the Fatherhood Foundation. You're involved with it this year again, and supporting nonprofits and supporting other businesses and whatnot. And which is important, right? Because when people look at you and they see that you're doing that, is that they're not just paying 10 grand for a roof just so you can make all the money, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
People think.
Well, that's what people think. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it's going back into the community to some degree. But roofing's hard, right? I don't think that's. I mean, when I go to a new construction, you know, because there's always different stages of houses being built in the developments. You know, I'm like, oh man, it's really hot today. Well, I guess I'm going inside to the air conditioner, and next door they're just slinging hammers.
For sure.
Know? I mean, it is not
brutal.
Yeah, it's not an easy. I made the comment yesterday at a pre-drywall. There was a couple of us there for an inspection. Like, man, I've never seen. I'm not body shaming anybody, but I've never seen an overweight roofer. Right?
It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Bud.
I mean, I was there at 8:00 in the morning, and those guys were wearing long sleeve, you know, the UV shirts, and already soaked with sweat. You know, at 8:00 in the morning.
So one thing, UV shirts weren't a thing when I was roofing.
They were not. They were not.
What an amazing technological advance for roofers, man, or for anybody outside. It's amazing because you sweat off sunscreen. It's
yes, sir.
You know.
Yes, sir.
But no, you're 100% right, and it is not only is it the hardest job that you're really going to do, but it's also one of the most dangerous. I mean, it's the highest injury illness rate of any profession.
And it's hard. I've been told, like the whole insurance side of thing, workers' comp, all that stuff, is just
highest insurance
through
rate.
the roof, right?
And that's how I know that we have the highest injury illness rate. Because I'm like, excuse me, why is it so expensive? And they're like, oh, well, because you guys, you guys.
Get it? See what I did there? Yeah, thank you.
Killed it.
Thank you. Go back to your phone.
Yeah. Fact check that pun. So, you know, it's like, yeah, you're right. And so it's very dangerous. It's, you know, and so, but with that being said, as a technician, as an installer, you can also make a lot more money because of that.
Yeah.
And for a couple of different reasons. One, you know, there's money in roofing. And so we spread that around. So the guy even down cleaning up the ground on the job is going to make more money cleaning up a SlopePro ground than they will anything else. Sure. And so that's another thing that we reinvest in. We do not want the turnover in the labor. We also do a ton of outreach into the community. I'm working multiple different angles to build out that workforce. Mm-hmm. We just had Henrico high schoolers at our shop on Tuesday, learning how to roof, which is in itself kind of a miracle because they're on summer break right now. Yeah. And so they, of their own, you know, free will, decided to sign up for a 3-week roofing class at the beginning of the start of their summer. And so, which I commend those young men for that. And
I mean, they're probably going to get their counselor fired when they get back to school.
Well,
like, hey, whoever recommended that.
So I would say there was 3 or 4 rock stars in there.
Nice.
And I'm all like, do you even need that high school diploma, dude? You know? Just kidding. Get your high school diploma. Yeah. But we did that in conjunction with VARP, which is Virginia Roofing Professionals, a phenomenal organization. For any roofer that might be listening, I implore you to join that. It's great. They do a lot of lobbying at the state and federal level for our needs as roofers, but then they're also doing this, you know, labor pool development, which is the first in the country. I mean, it's the first literal roofing training course for high schoolers anywhere in the United States of America, which I know sounds wild because it is obviously one of the most critical phases of not only just the building envelope, but really, I mean, it's food, water, shelter, man. It's in the top 3. Yeah. But we don't train them. And so, and like you said, not only is roofing one of these things that is, you know, there's a lack of trust there. There's also a lack of interest in professional development. It is looked down on as a job that you end up on, you know, once you get your first felony. Right. And so it's like, oh, you're a roofer. Well, how did you know, what bad decisions did you make to end up there? And the honest truth is, I mean, people are very, very apt to go that are not, you know, going to go to college, which I think a 4-year degree is not for everybody. A 4-year degree was not for me. I wish I hadn't spent a nickel on university. So I went for business. They taught me how to work in a cubicle. I had to learn how to build a business the hard way, just like everybody else will have to do.
Right.
So you're welcome, ODU, for all that free money. And so they, you know, not everybody's apt to that. And I think, and there is a real shift in the perception of trades versus going to college. A lot of you know, rising seniors are deciding, like, you know what, I'm not going to spend the money on college. I would rather go into a trade and start making money. And a lot of them are flooding into HVAC, electrical, plumbing, because there's a lot more training programs set up for that.
Sure.
And so, you know, like I was telling these kids, like I tell everybody, yes, you know, roofing is a hard, tough job, but you're going to make more money out the gate and through your career roofing than you will as an HVAC technician for multiple factors. One, again, those markets are being flooded. So you've got now more competition to get a job and to be, you know, in the higher supervisor roles. And there's a lot more of a glass ceiling there now, just because you're having so many more people going into those trades. Whereas roofing's not that. I mean, if you're a good, you know, you're a good worker, you show up every day, you know what you're doing. I mean, there's really a sky is the limit kind of scenario, a big fish, small pond scenario. And so, you know, a trained HVAC or a technician is going to make, you know, $35 an hour on the outside until they start moving up into those supervisor roles or project management roles. You know, a top technician in roof is going to make over $50 an hour. Yeah. So, you know, and now, again, we've already talked about the UV shirts. I mean, it's already exponentially easier.
Exactly. Right.
And
you get all rain days and snow days off.
It's one of the best things. To this day, man, a rain day is the hardest thing for me to cope with, because my entire life, rain day meant off day. Yeah. And now as a business owner, there are no off days. And so, like, if you come into my office on a sunny day like today, dude, I'm 100 miles an hour, baby. We're on a rain day, I'm like this in my chair, like, dude, I'm ready to go home. It's 9 o'clock already. Why did I even get out of bed this morning? So that is you know, you're right. You do get those rain days off. Yeah. And then, you know, but also, I mean, we're doing things like setting up tents and we're taking water break, doing the things that my grandfather never did, because, you know, he was Great Depression born. He's all like, you've already drank water an hour ago. Yeah. What are you doing?
What do you do? Yeah.
Come on, man. Stop being weak.
We didn't have Gatorade when I was your age.
Yeah, you're drinking hose water, dude. Legit. Dude, my cousin, one time we were working on this farm in North Carolina, and they didn't have any water to this old house. And so the farmer was like, oh, I'll go get you guys some water. He comes back with one of those fertilizer tanks filled with water they filled up from the well or whatever. It was like a neon green water, dude. And I'm like, I'm not drinking that. And my cousin Rob's like, oh, dude, you know, we're dying of thirst out here. And so I'm all, you know, my uncle's like, I'll go to the store and get some water. Well, my cousin's drinking this water. In the meantime, he peed that neon green for 3 days.
It's good. It just made him stronger.
Yeah, he's like, it's still green. I'm like, dude, you should probably go to the hospital. This guy's fed you like Roundup or something, dude. You're never going to be the same again after this. But yeah, that's just, you know, that's what we had to contend with.
That's awesome.
But yeah, man, I mean, it is a hot job, but you can make a lot of money, and it is, you will never not have a job if you learn that skill. And
that, I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, I was talking to a guy, he's a brick mason. And he does more historical things now, you know, historical societies and whatnot. But he says that, you know, when he's teaching young people how to do, he's like, if you can just repoint, you'll never go hungry.
Not in Richmond, buddy.
Yeah, and there's just not a ton of them out there. So if you can just do it.
Oh, call him Mason right now and ask him when he's going to get out there. It's 2 months.
Yeah.
For any Mason in town.
So and that's the thing. Like, there's always going to be a need for roofs, you know, especially as you know, whether you believe it or not, you know, and all the science, but, you know, storms cause damage, right? So as we get more and more storms and more violent, you know, I drove down the street of my neighborhood today, and they had the roof off and a crane out there and repairing trusses because a tree fell through the roof, you know.
Yeah, they're hard on a roof. Big tree. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and same thing with HVAC. There's always going to be a need for HVACs and electricians and plumbers and whatnot, because the work is always going to be there. Always. It can't be outsourced. It can't be AI generated.
Nope.
You know,
look, if a Tesla robot learns how to roof, I'll be the first one out here buying them.
Right.
I'll have them up there.
So speaking of that, you know, one of the things that I tell people all the time, like, you know, how do you be successful? And it's like, be different. Right?
Yes.
Don't, you don't copy and paste what the next guy did. You can take parts of it, but how do you be successful? And that's be different, right?
Yes.
That's how you got to get the attention, because I don't know. I mean, there's probably over 100 home inspectors in Richmond.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how many roofing companies there are. You know, from the Chuck in the Truck to you know the franchise, all the things, right?
For sure.
So it's about standing out and getting eyeballs on you, right? Because
Yes.
again, most people don't understand the difference from one guy to another, other than the quote.
Yes.
So you guys are doing stuff now that's innovative and different. To try to streamline that process to help
Yes.
you grow. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing, what it comes down to is knowing your customer, right? Knowing what the people want. And then giving them that as much as you possibly can. And that's for any business that you run, in any sector, in the world.
And it's also understanding what they want is going to vary across generations.
Absolutely.
You know, because the older generation, they want they want to talk on the phone.
Yes.
They want you there in person.
Yes.
They want you to, you know, have a drink in the living room while
Get
you
to
go
know
over
you.
everything.
Absolutely.
And the younger generation, like, can you text that to me?
100%.
You know,
Yeah,
so,
please. I am terrified to have this conversation.
yeah.
So yes, and knowing that, and there's a couple of things that go along with that. So specifically for roofing is a need, almost never a want.
That's right.
Okay.
That's
I
right.
will meet the one-off who's all like, man, I can't wait to do this roof. But I'm like, okay, I didn't even see that one coming, you know? As a third generation roofer, I don't even want to have to do my own roof. Okay. So I get that. It's not a kitchen reno. It's not a bathroom reno. It's not that, you know, people love that. They want to be involved in that process, and they want to, it's an emotional thing.
Because at the end of the day, it still looks like a roof.
100%. And so it's like, you let that thing wear all the way out, and then it leaks, and you're like, oh my God, now I have to do this roof,
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And this is a box that you have to check that you don't want to check.
Right.
We understand that. And so what we've done now is we've started essentially streamlining the entire process to where you can get your entire quote and basically buy your entire roof online. And so I know that some people are like, what? That doesn't even make any sense. But the technology has been there for this for over 20 years. It's trusted by all the major insurance companies. Roofers in every market across the country have been using this for over 20 years. We know that it works. The data is in. We know that from a satellite, we can get your roof estimate as accurate as we could with an in-person inspection. Okay. Every company's doing it. In fact, most companies that come out and do your inspection, they just climb up on the roof, so they're gone for a little bit, and they are still using this technology.
Right.
It is all about the FaceTime and sitting you down at that kitchen counter and getting that high pressure sales.
Yep.
Okay, that high pressure sales at your kitchen counter is good for nobody but the salesman, not even the roofing company.
If you sign right now,
yes,
I'll give you this deal.
Yeah, if you hear a guy say, "Hey, we got a tech in the area that can look at it," are you the only decision maker, buddy? You know you're in for it. It's coming.
As soon as I get in the car, the price goes up.
That's right. Listen, I'm about to make my quota. All I got to do, you know, everybody's hip to that now.
Yep.
And again, that is only good for the salesman. Why? Because I mean, roofing companies are using that model because the model works. And again, trying to compete and be competitive, they're all using it. And then they have to hire this. Most times that guy that's really good at that process is not a great employee. He's kind of a rock star. He's not good for culture. He's, he's a have to have, not a want to have inside of your organization in almost all cases. And so to that end, we've completely streamlined this process. So you can go to our website, you can enter in your address and your email address, and in seconds, you can get a range on what that residential roof is going to cost you. That range is plus or minus 15%. It is literally just a budgetary number. So if if you know, like, okay, man, I know my roof's worn out, I just had this home inspection or whatever, know the roof, I'm going to have to do it this year. It's not leaking right now. We all know you're going to push that thing to the absolute death before you make that decision. Sure. But you do want to know what it's going to cost, because anything, even if I know a lot of people in a lot of trades, but if I want to know what a driveway is going to cost me, I'm going to literally Google what's a driveway cost before I call the guy that I know that does driveways.
Yep.
And so, you can do that, and it's going to be hyper accurate. And then that lets you know what it's going to cost. Now from there, say it's time to move forward, or you really want to know. Now you can go in, you're going to answer 10 questions, 12 questions, upload a couple of pictures at ground level, or 360 around your house, and then we're going to be able to deliver those good, better, best estimates to you that are curated for you based on how you answer your questions, your motivations, what you're trying to do. Because obviously, if you're selling the house next month, you don't need the most expensive roof with the best warranties. You need a good roof that's going to sell well.
Yeah.
And we understand that. So we're going to curate that roof for your specific needs. Right out the gate, it saves you the sales commission. So I'm already going to be more competitive. Mm-hmm. It streamlines it to where I'm not sending guys in and out, and so I can save some money there. All those savings are then passed on to the consumer, to the customer. And then instead of getting a salesperson, because the way the process works now, you get the salesperson, they come out, they hit you with the high pressure, they get you to sign up. As soon as you sign up, you never see that guy again in almost all cases. Now you're passed down the line, and then, you just feel like you're in this roller coaster ride, and the roof's done. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's good. Hopefully it's good, whatever. The person that works, so once you do the initial range is all generated by AI. That's all, we don't touch that. Once you go for the certified estimate, that is then handed to an actual roof expert. They are using the satellite measurements. They're putting together your estimates. They're corresponding with you, emailing with you, and in the emails we're doing videos instead of words, because I think it's a good way for you to get to know that salesperson. Or they're more of a project manager. Get to know that project manager without actually having to face with him or talk with him or her. And then once you move forward with the project, they're also the one that shows up there that morning and says, hey, Sid, thank you so much for, I'm going to be here. I've got, at any given time, these project managers don't have more than 2 jobs going on. So, you're getting an enormous amount of hands-on, customer service through the process. They're doing the quality control. They're making sure that, something goes wrong. We are fixing that in the moment. And so you're going to get a better roof, a better customer service, a better quality overall experience, and you're actually going to spend less money on that. Nice. And so that's what we're doing. We're very excited about it. It's been, there's been a lot of stuff that goes into that. So we're excited that actually will go live on our website tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So it's brand new. Yep. And by tomorrow, I do mean Friday. I think this is going to drop on like a Tuesday. So by the time you hear this, it's live. We're rolling, baby.
Yeah.
So very excited about it.
That's awesome. Innovation and stuff like that is what separates everybody else.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
There's a lot of people, and you see them all the time. See them in home inspectors, see them in roofers, see them in HVAC guys. We call them chuck in the trucks, but it's the guy. It's not that they're not good at what they do.
No doubt. Right? I was a chuck in a truck at one point. Yeah, for sure.
It's that they're comfortable.
Yes.
Right? Like, and the problem is when you're not constantly pushing or not constantly innovating. At some point, like if the market turns or whatever happens, or you get hurt or whatever the case may be, all of a sudden it's like, well, now what, right? Like
100%.
Versus you're just constantly trying to push that envelope. And again, that's what separates so many companies is just the ability to be able to be more visible, streamline processes, be more customer friendly. I always tell people marketing is you're finding a solution to a problem that somebody has. That's 100%. What it is. And if the problem is, cause your revenue source or your client source comes from everywhere. But if you're not tapping into like, well, what's the problem? The problem is I don't want to talk to you on the phone.
That's right.
The problem is I don't want a salesman in my house. I want a price. I want you to get the work done. And that's it. Right.
Be smooth. Yeah. Pretty great looking roof works. So I don't have to do it again.
Yeah, so that's the problem. The problem is why I don't want to use your company because I don't want that in my house.
Right.
So now you create a solution to that problem.
Definitely.
And the fact that it's mostly accurate plus or minus 15%, is impressive.
Yeah.
Well, without anybody coming out there.
So that's just the range. So the actual estimate that you get back that we'll sign a contract on is 99.9% accurate.
Yeah, without anybody going out there. Yeah.
And so and the things that could change that estimate would change even with the inspections. Like we run into rotted wood. We can't see that. It's all covered up. So there are some change order stuff in there, and there will be times that things are missed. But again, if there's something that's missed on our end, we're just going to eat the cost of that. It's not going to cost the client. That's the cost of doing business for us. It's part of the thing. So like I said, we're excited about it. And again, like you said, the chuck in the truck versus the larger car. I've built something at SlopePro, not me, but the people with me and me together. We have built something that will run without, if I died tomorrow, SlopePro would survive.
Right.
And the more we push, the bigger that gets, the more that becomes a thing. And so when you're talking about warranties and standing behind something, you want to do that with a company that will be here in 30 years. Or I mean, we do offer in some cases 50-year installation warranties.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna be almost 90 years old in 50 years. Now I'll look great. You know, I'll be still a thoroughbred at 90. But hopefully I ain't having to do nothing with roofs, you know?
That's right.
But SlopePro, still be clicking along.
100%.
So, and
100%.
that's the vision. And like you said, I mean, my cousin is what we would call Chuck in a truck. And Robbie's a genius, man. I love him. He's like my big brother. And nobody's going to put on a better roof than that guy, but he's putting that roof on.
Yeah.
And same thing. I mean, if some, God forbid, something happens to him, that's it, you know?
Yep.
Pal and Son's done.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and right now, I mean, in the middle of summer, if you called him, he's probably not answering the phone.
Yeah.
You know, but because his price is so good and he's in a small town where people still do word of mouth. And,
that's right.
You know, it's still kind of that old school vibe. You know, they'll be like, oh, well, that's just Robbie. You know, he'll call you back when he calls you back. It might be 2 weeks, and then he'll get there when he gets there. But when he does, it'll be great price, and it'll be a great roof, and that's people are willing to wait for that. But the further we go into the future, the less that's even a thing that people are willing
100%.
to do. Most people, if you don't answer the phone, man, they're already on to the next one, and you're forgotten.
100%. Yeah, I mean, and you see, like, you know, I live in New Kent, and, you know, that's how it used to be done back then, right?
Yep.
But now you're getting people, again, talk about mobile people, you know, we're getting people from, whether it's from Richmond, whether it's from Newport News, whether it's from DC, California, wherever they're coming from. They don't know those people.
That's right.
You don't answer, they ain't gonna wait for you.
Nope.
They're moving on.
What's the next list in Google?
And that's where you got to go to, you know, are you evolving with your demographics, your area, the times, whatever you want to call it, to be able to stay up on that. The last thing we'll talk about is more on what's happening in the industry, and, you know, and it's more so related to real estate.
Yep.
You know, we've talked about it before, but insurance, right? Insurance is changing, right?
Thanks to roofers mostly.
Ruined it for everybody. You know, and again, this is just one of those things that I keep telling people, but nobody wants to listen to me. But the industry is changing to the point where, you know, you go to buy and sell a house, and insurance looks at that roof.
It looks old a little bit.
They look old a little bit. They ain't going to insure it.
No, they will not.
They want you to either replace it or have it inspected.
That's right.
So what are you seeing on your end in terms of that in Virginia? Because, you know, my go-to is typically Florida, where they do 4 points, right?
For sure.
And that's strictly for the insurance company. There's no agent. I mean, agents, I guess, attached to it, but there's no influence from the agent, from the client, from the seller. It's just facts, right? The insurance company's paying the home inspector to give them a report, and part of that 4 point, one of those points is the roof. Right?
Absolutely.
And if it's over, I think 10 years, they don't want to mess with it.
They're not going to insure that house.
So,
and that is spreading. And yes, Florida's insurance industry for real was in like dire straits. I think they're still kind of riding an edge down there. And I mean, for obvious reasons, right? You have a ton of storms, and they're constantly rebuilding from
water.
a hurricane. Yeah,
whole state's surrounded by water.
No doubt. So tough state to be in for insurance.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, what it comes down to more than anything, and so obviously, we work hand in hand with insurance companies, and unfortunately, the roofing companies, specifically in the Southeast and in Texas, Colorado, and places where they have big hail, and they have created a scenario where the contractor and the insurance company now are more adversaries than they are partners in making a person whole on their house. Okay? And this all happened because, you know, I don't know when it was. It was probably 15, maybe 20 years ago. A couple of roofing companies found out that if you started filing claims, some of those claims would get paid for. Customer gets a free, and there's never an easier sales pitch than free roof, right? So they started riding that, and they realized that, you know, through supplementation and different things, you can actually make more money off the insurance company than you can off of just the fair market. Sure. And so this is
20-year roof, brand new roof,
100%.
Right? Even though it's at the end of life, but because a hailstorm came through, you get a new roof now.
That's right. Yeah. And so, and in some cases, doesn't even have damage. I mean, we can do a whole podcast on the nuances of this. But so, I mean, basically, the game, the way it is okay. You want to start a roofing business, and you're in Georgia. Okay, Georgia's a famous state for this. you know, you don't have to have anything. You don't even have to have a truck. All you have to be able to do is knock on a door and get an insurance claim filed that gets paid. Then you sub everything out on the back end. I mean, you're in business making more than a doctor makes for an overhead of less than $1,000 buy-in, you know, and it's a great business model because of those things. And so the way it really works is, okay, let's say you go into a neighborhood that had marginal hail, and Virginia is famous for marginal hail. And what I mean by that is really anything under 1.5 inch hailstone. So 1.5 inch, think of that as a little bit bigger than a quarter. Okay. Typically, in almost all cases, unless the roof's already worn out anyway, hailstone less than that will not damage the shingle to a point where the insurance company is responsible for paying for it. So the way that a hailstone damages a roof is it hits it with enough terminal velocity that it will fracture the fiberglass mat. So a shingle is fiberglass sprayed with tar and granulated. That's what a shingle is made out of, essentially, you know. When that hailstone hits that shingle hard enough to where the fiberglass mat, what the shingle is basically holding everything together, if that fiberglass fractures, that shingle is now irreparably damaged to the point where it will shorten the expected service life. And once that has happened, insurance, by the letter, owes you for that roof, okay? So it's no different than a dent in your car. So it takes a pretty good size hailstone to do that. Well, say a small hailstone hits in your neighborhood, you know, 1/2 inch to 1 inch. I mean, dude, if you're home, it sounds like a violent thing. You're like, of course my roof's ruined. It was, you know, crazy. The yard was white, you know, knocked all the leaves off the trees. So in almost all cases, that hail would not have damaged your roof. However, if a roofing company comes in, say there's 200 homes in your neighborhood or whatever, they knock on every single door, okay? Of the 200 doors they knock on, say 85 people filed an actual insurance claim because they were there. The hail, of course their roof's damaged. I'm going to file this insurance claim. Any homeowner is going to, you know, automatically do that. Well, all right. What you also know is that most neighborhoods are all built within a certain amount of time of each other. So if there's 200 homes in that neighborhood, let's say Allstate owns 150 of those homes in the risk. Because same thing, as you're getting a mortgage, you're just getting the cheapest insurance that goes along with that. It's all kind of bundled together when you buy a house. And so the company that is the cheapest for you, when I buy the house next door to you, it's typically still the cheapest. You know, they'll kind of bundle all that together. So out of 200 homes, say Allstate owns, you know, 75% of those. So of the 80 homes, let's say that, you know, 60 of those homes are all Allstate. All of those claims are baseless. None of those 80 homes have hail damage on them whatsoever. But Allstate now is going to deny 60 claims in one neighborhood. That, in almost all cases, is going to flag the Insurance Commission of Virginia. And so the Insurance Commission is going to say, well, Allstate, why'd you deny 60 claims? There was obviously a hailstorm. You've denied all these claims. Why? And so now they're in an audit phase. And so some numbers genius, and insurance companies have a bunch of those, has figured out that buying 10% of those claims is cheaper than doing the audit. And so instead of denying 60, they buy 6 or 10 of them and then deny the rest. And so those 6 or 10, okay, so if you knocked into 2 afternoons and you got 6 roofs out the deal, buddy, you're going to make $350,000 this year. You're killing it.
That's right.
So, you know, that's why that whole business model exists. So to combat that, the insurance company now is doing a couple different things. One, straight out the gate, you got to get a new roof because new roofs also have higher impact resistance. And so, you know, your likelihood of legit damage is way shorter. Also, wind damage on 3 tabs, very prevalent. It's another thing that's an easy replacement. You know, you got some tabs missing. You know, there's plenty of companies that'll go up there and make sure you got some tabs missing. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And so, they're getting out ahead of that too. So that's one thing where, if the roof's even old at all, we're not going to insure it because we know we're going to have to pay for it. Another thing that they're doing is they're changing their deductible structure. So that way, if your house burns down, your deductible is $1,000, right? Somebody drives a car into your house, $1,000. If in a hail or wind claim, your deductible structure changes from the $1,000 to a percentage of the value of the house. And that's anywhere between 1% and 3%.
Yeah.
And that sliding scale depends on basically how much that roof's going to cost. So once you really start breaking that down, you'll find that, okay, well, 1% deductible means I owe an $18,000 deductible or whatever. And guess what? The roof costs $17,000. And so your deductible in almost all cases is higher than that roof. And that's not an accident.
Right.
And so that's how they're combating the business model of let's knock on a bunch of doors, inundate the insurance company with all because that's another thing. Processing those claims too, expensive.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, going through an audit, expensive. Just buying them from the office at 10% to keep people happy, the cheapest option. And you've kind of got them over a barrel. And you know, all these roofing companies that do this, I know several of them that do. We do not file insurance claim. In fact, 99% of what we do is retail.
Right.
Now, if you call us and you've already filed an insurance claim, we're very happy to help you with that. But we're unless we show up and it's like, oh yeah, baseballs hit this roof, it's destroyed. You know, we're not the file the insurance claim and see what happens guy. You know.
Yeah, so. And at the end of the day, man, I mean, it would suck. You know, I say this as somebody who said, like, if it happened to my roof, like, well, that sucks now. Right. But it's how it should have always been. Because, like I said, back in the day, it was, oh, you know, well, yeah, your roof's 25 years old, but you got hail damage. Here's $20,000 for a new roof. Right. Versus now it's more prorated, right?
Depreciated, yeah.
So, which is the same thing with cars, right? I pay $30,000 for a car. I go wreck it 5 years from now. They're not giving me $30,000.
No, they're not.
They won't give you, a couple thousand for it because that's how much it's worth today.
Yep.
And that's how it should probably always been. Yeah. Right? But that's not how they did it for whatever reason. And
they created a cash cow in the roofing industry.
Yeah. And it created all kinds of problems for the insurance industry. Somebody, when we went about a month or two ago, we were doing a little happy hour thing.
Yep.
And one of the guys that was there was like, hey, so I need a new roof. And you think I do an insurance claim? And it was right before you got there, I think. And there was an insurance guy saying, I was like, well, he talked to him more than he talked to me, but they'll give you about, I was like, how old's your roof? He told me, I was like, yeah, they'll give you about $150 for that. Like you didn't.
Not gonna match your deductible.
Yeah. So
then you're gonna have that claim on your it's like a felony, man. It's on your record forever.
Exactly. And he was like, oh, I was like, yeah, those days are gone.
Yep. For a good reason. I mean, it's increased all of our premiums. I mean, homeowners insurance is super expensive for a lot of reasons. I mean, weather's getting worse. If you hear it, I'm not a meteorologist, I can't speak to that. But, right. Insurance is definitely talking like it is. Yeah. And so, but it's the unnecessary burden is ridiculous.
It is.
And you're right. I mean, that's another thing that they're doing is they're changing from actual cash value to depreciated cash value. The actual cash value is, what it would be for new. And then you have the depreciation. And so it's like what was typically done is, okay, you file the claim, they give you the depreciated value. So say that roof, is 20 years old, it'd be $10,000 to replace it. They're going to give you $2,000 because that's what it's worth in the condition that it's in. And then when you replace the roof, they give you the other $8,000. Yeah, because now it's a new roof. Right. They're getting rid of that to where some policies have just now you can still buy a policy that will pay you what a new roof costs, but it changes your premium structure. Sure. So when most people, they don't, man, they're just like, okay, I'm going to shop 3 companies. Yep. Whoever's the cheapest per 100%. Month is who I'm going with. And the implications of that is that insurance is good if your house burns down. Yeah. And even then,
especially if you haven't kept up with things as far as your policies go, for sure, which is a whole nother podcast of understanding that. Oh yeah. I get it. Like, we've all fought with insurance companies.
For sure. And to be completely honest with you, Sid, just for disclaimer, I'm not an insurance expert. Right. I know how it affects my business and my industry, but there's so many moving parts, and they're setting the rules to the game, because
they are. And at the end of the day, it's a business. Like you can't run a business at a net loss.
No, well, and if you don't have insurance, you don't have mortgage. Yeah. If you don't have mortgage, you don't have home ownership. Yep. So insurance, love them or hate them, is a necessary thing.
Yeah. So when we start talking about real estate, and the old saying in real estate, especially when we say, hey, the roof's past its age, like, well, does it leak? Right. Right. Because the insurance has always been an afterthought. Just, get to it when you get to it, got to have it before you close. But I think moving forward, especially as we get more and more into whatever they're going to do in Virginia, whether it's insurance claim or 4 points, whether it's they request the home inspectors thing where they send somebody to do a drive-by, Google Earth or whatever, you're going to have to deal with that a lot sooner in the process, not
Absolutely.
the day before closing and, hey, did you get your homeowners? Because that roof's going to pop up.
No doubt.
Right? Like whether or not we put aging or say that it's fine, like somebody's going to say they're going to flag that. And
For sure.
you're going to have to start negotiating roofs that's not leaking.
For sure.
That's or not damaged, not leaking. They're just old.
Well, and I have customers ask me all the time, can I, if I replace I'm thinking about selling my house, if I replace my roof, can I reclaim that, can I basically charge more for my house? I'm like, well, I'm not a real estate agent.
Yeah.
So I do know real estate agents that say, no, you can't.
Yeah.
And I know real estate agents that say, yes, you can. So if your real estate agent's saying no, I'll shoot you the number of the guy that says yes. So you just do what you do.
Pretty much.
I know it's got to be easier to sell with a brand new roof, but
especially first time home buyers.
But again, not a real estate expert,
home prices, all the things, because nobody wants to, spend $400,000 just move in and spend another $15,000 on a new roof. So
no, they hate that.
Yeah,
we see that a lot, especially from the boom of we're not going to do a home inspection in the middle of COVID.
Yes, sir.
Oh man, what a fun time to be alive. You're like, oh my God, I just spent all my cash on this house. And especially on the row homes downtown, those flat roofs are super expensive for the square footage.
100%.
People don't realize. And then like, oh my God, we just bought this house and we're house poor. And I'm like, well, now you need a $30,000 roof.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've done a lot, and we'll wrap this up in a second, but I've done like 3 or 4, probably 4 in the last couple of weeks, $1 million homes. Like we've had a lot of expensive big homes.
Right.
And 3 out of 4 of the ones I've done, new roofs.
Yep.
Like it's like, hey, this is a $28,000 roof.
Oh yeah.
Like,
big boys.
Yeah. So I was like, I wonder why they're selling. I was like, oh, because everything's getting old and they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to replace 3 HVACs, $30,000 roof, and 2 water heaters.
Yep.
So it's time to get rid of it and let it be somebody else's problem.
For sure.
And of
well,
course,
just remember when you're doing those and it needs a new roof, you can go to my website and get your cost secure.
Cost secure, yeah.
Plus or minus 15%.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I appreciate you coming in, man. This was fun. Thanks for doing it last minute.
Thanks for having me, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I'll do it again.
Anytime. Thank you, Sid. Hey, thank you, Courtney. You did great over there.